The MLB playoffs have just about arrived, and the pathway through the postseason has nearly been established for the Philadelphia Phillies. But despite the lofty expectations that this franchise has and the chance to chase them directly, some skeptics are pointing out that Rob Thomson's future with the organization may not be quite as secure as many of us would think. I'm here to fight back on this notion and explain why I think it's incredibly premature to be having any sort of these conversations. Now, I understand there is some truth to the pressure is high, that this playoff run, these stakes are there for this Phillies team, that regardless, no matter how any way you slice it, this team's going to look different this year. But I think any way that does go down is probably with Rob Thomson at the helm. Now, to get into why I got here, I first want to start off with this tweet coming up from our guy Phillies Tailgate here that says Rob Thomson was mentioned in this Ken Rosenthal article about teams that could change their manager or head of baseball operations. And what Rosenthal writes is, quote, "The low-key Thomson still appears a perfect match for his grizzled veteran players. The question is whether another early exit would make president of baseball operations Dave Dombrowski restless. Dombrowski, by adding closer Johan Duran, right-hander David Robertson, and center fielder Harrison Bader in July, gave Thomson seemingly everything he needs." Now, I will interject here a little bit and note the video itself, when I watched Rosenthal talking about it, did not come off as convincing as sort of the article read to me. That I feel like in print, he was talking about this is a legitimate conversation being had. When I watched him speak about it, it felt a little more of like a, this could be the case. Like if I'm thinking out loud or projecting, it didn't feel like there's anything that led him to the belief of Dave Dombrowski talking bad on Rob Thomson. Now, as we have this conversation, I do think it's important to reflect on how we got here with Rob Thomson. Let's not forget how lifeless this Phillies organization felt with Joe Girardi as the manager here, and the spark that was brought on, the turnaround, the World Series run that immediately kicked off when he took over this Phillies organization. Now, that does not fall entirely on Rob Thomson, but what I think is important to note here is a lot of times with baseball, especially as a sport, the personality of a manager sometimes matters even more than the X's and O's or the baseball decisions there. That I think for Thomson directly, he does have a voice in the clubhouse or a match for this team's energy. There are a lot of big personalities on this Phillies team. From the Brandon Marshes of the world, Harrison Bader is certainly bringing that table. Bryce Harper himself, who's been the face of the organization, and the personality, the core of it for quite some time. That comes with a lot there. I don't think Girardi was a match. I do think Topper is, and I think that is important to consider before you go ahead and make any sort of decisions. And beyond just the personality, the results are straight up there. That Rob Thomson, across his time as Phillies manager, went 65-46 in his first season there, 90-72 in his second season, 95-67 in his third, and at this stage of the game, 94-65 on the year. Throughout those 4 years, 344 and 250, a 579 win-loss percentage. Now, the part that I will hold some weight to is whenever there is failure, someone has to catch the blame. If the Phillies are to come up short in the postseason, there might be some uncomfortable conversations with Rob Thomson. But I also think we have to give this guy a little bit of fairness that when you date back to where things went south in these past playoffs, that sure, they've taken step backs for 3 consecutive seasons, that they went to the World Series, and then they took a step back, and then they took another step back, not even making it past the first round last year. But I don't think any of these were Rob Thomson issues. We've seen the bats go cold. We've seen the bullpen not be good enough here. That bullpen last year, it did not matter what choice Rob Thomson made, that none of them were good enough. At the end of the day, that's a general manager conversation. Now, to Dombrowski's credit, he went out and got Johan Duran. He sort of, Frankenstein together a pretty high-level bullpen that is ready to take place, especially when you factor in getting guys off the scrap heap, essentially. David Robertson wasn't even pitching in Major League Baseball. We know that this is his third stint with the Phillies. We know he can do as a pitcher to this point, but that is a guy that was brought in for essentially nothing. Walker Buehler, a guy who was directly cut from the Red Sox there. I'm not ready to say that Walker Buehler is a savior to this bullpen, but that's an upgrade over other options that they had. And I'm loving what I'm seeing from Buehler, to be perfectly honest. Even in his performance yesterday, after being taken out of the game, the dude immediately goes to the bullpen and starts throwing a full bullpen, and full bullpen workout. And he talks about, like, I'm trying to build my arm up. Like, this is important. The playoff pitches take more of a toll on your body than regular season pitches. That what might feel like 100 in the regular season, that same feeling is after 75 in the postseason, and that's what I want to be prepared for. This is the same guy who recorded the last out in last year's World Series for the Dodgers. That's who Walker Buehler is. I have a hard time believing He went from being a guy who could fill a role as a starter, could fill a role as a closer, a little bit of that like Zach Eflin in the good days role here in Phillies with the Phillies here, that maybe he could be that for this team this year. That's a worthy swing from Dave Dombrowski here. That is a guy worth taking a chance on. I do think it's true that Rob Thomson has the tools to make this a World Series championship team. But the bottom line is the games are played on the field. That what's going to have a significantly more weight on whether that outcome is achieved or not is the actual performance of the players. Rob Thomson can't swing a bat for Bryce Harper. Rob Thomson can't throw a changeup for Christopher Sanchez here. Rob Thomson just has to trust his players, and that is something that I think is directly there. Now, when speaking a little bit about the organization as a whole, there are a couple other loose ends that I did want to tie up here. For starters, Dave Dombrowski going on WIP, and he was asked a little bit about the Nick Castellanos comments on Rob Thomson directly. And what Dave Dombrowski said is, quote, if you feel that way and you then go talk to the manager, just go ahead and discuss it. I think Rob Thomson does a good job of communicating. I do wish it had just stayed in the clubhouse. And this is really like the only evidence that the anti-Rob Thomson people can point to. But if we're going to call a spade, I think Rob Thomson has been beyond fair to Nick Castellanos and been a guy who's put up with more than a lot of managers could. I also give Thomson a lot of credit for Castellanos being a guy that's been the everyday right fielder since he got to Philadelphia. That is paid like an everyday player for this Phillies team. Topper had the stones to look him in the eye and say, I'm sorry, man. We're rolling with Brandon Marsh. We're rolling with Max Kepler. We're rolling with Harrison Bader. These are guys that give our team a direct better chance to win right now. That's why he's paid the big bucks to make the decision. I do think Rob Thomson has overall done a pretty excellent job as manager of the Phillies. Do I wish that there was sometimes a little more fire in his gut? Do I wish he was defend his guys to umpires and things like that? Are there certain decisions in the past, like in the playoffs, like pulling a starter a little bit too early or things like that you can critique? Absolutely. He's not perfect, but nor is any manager. I'm here to back Rob Thomson, that wherever this season goes, I don't believe that we will be writing home critiquing this guy for the reason that this team did not reach the top. This is not a manager that has prevented this team from reaching its ceiling. That is the team's responsibility to now take it there. And I do think it is worth noting, this team has dealt with more adversity than people want to give credit. The Zack Wheeler being shut down for a season. There's a lot of teams that would straight up end their outlook. Bringing a pitcher of Zack Wheeler's caliber completely off the table here, that is a season ruiner for organizations. The Phillies haven't missed a beat. Trey Turner has been out for an extended period of time due to that hamstring injury, and that has not slowed down the offense pretty much whatsoever. This is a guy that was leading the National League in hits, leading the National League in batting average, has been the player that they hope they sign. They have not missed him, and that is a testament to not only the rest of the players stepping up, but Rob Thomson setting that as the standard of we're not just riding and dying with one player. And to that same point on Trey Turner, is we got a positive update from Rob Thomson that he said Trey Turner will return by the postseason, but he's still not sure about this weekend. The Phillies will hold an inter-squad scrimmage on Wednesday ahead of the NLDS. So obviously the Phillies will be sitting back and waiting to see exactly who their opponent will be. The bye week has been secured, which I do think is a big deal, and I do not subscribe to the theory that can create rust. I think at the bottom line, if you're the better team, you're going to be the better team, whether this is played the day after the playoffs end or 2 weeks after the playoff ends. I get that, that these are creatures of habit. Players have the routine. You can get thrown off to an extent, but that's why you got to have a guy like Rob Thomson that is running inter-squad scrimmages, doing what it takes to keep this team sharp. So my overall message here is just relax on the Rob Thomson hatred. It does feel like there is an automatic get the pitchforks out and chase this guy out of town when things go wrong in a way that I think is just very unfair to him. This guy's been a great manager during his time with the Phillies team, and I do believe there are going to be changes on the horizon this summer regardless. I don't think Rob Thomson is going to be one of them unless it is an absolute disaster exit for the playoffs. But we are not getting there yet, and I am here to feel optimistic about this Phillies team. So let me know if you guys are riding with me, and if you put any sort of weight in this. What would it take in your mind for Rob Thomson to be rightfully fired? Would it be a second consecutive, first-round exit, them being bounced right in their first series here? What would it be in your mind? I don't know if I have that answer there, but would love to hear from you guys below. Appreciate you guys tuning in this video as always. If you have not already, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. Drop a like on this video here. Red October is just about arrived, and me and Luke Arcani are going to be all over everything here on the channel. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button if you have not just yet. We'll be back talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.